Good morning and welcome everyone to the August Lochaber Area Committee meeting. We have no apologies for absence and no declarations of interest, and we note that recess powers were not exercised in relation to the business of Lochaber Community Committee. Thank you. So moving on to the first item 4, and for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service performance report. And thank you very much for joining us this morning, Shay, and thank you for the report.
Okay. Would you want me to go through a slight introduction about the report and its contents, or just go into the KPI straight away? How would you like me to proceed?
I think just a quick summary would be very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah. So this 6-month report you've got in front of you covers the SRS's performance activities in support of the 7 priorities in the local fire and rescue plan for the Highlands. Obviously, the 7 priorities, we look at domestic fire safety, unintentional harm, non-fire emergencies, deliberate fire setting, non-domestic fire safety, UFAS or unwanted fire alarm signals, and last but not least, operational resilience and preparedness. So as well as those priorities for Highland, the monitoring report shows how SRS activities and performance contribute to the wider priorities of the Highland Community Planning Partnership as set out in the Highland Community Plan. The figures of the report are provisional to provide the committee with Scottish Fire and Rescue Services direction of travel in the Highland area in terms of performance against headline indicators and targets. Most figures will not change, however. Members should note that there may be some small variations for some indicators when the final confirmed figures are published by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. Okay, so performance summary then. So the table below in your report, you'll see provides a summary of the 6 months from the 1st of October 2023 to 31st of March 2024 activity and year-to-date progress based on annual targets set against some headline indicators. It aims to provide at a glance our direction of travel during the current reporting year. So going through the table there, if we go from left to right as you move down, accidental dwelling fires, we've had oh, that's gone wrong. What's that? I think it's 6 instances there of ADFs, no fatal casualties and no non-fatal casualties. Home fire safety visits carried out with 68. Non-fire emergencies, we had 35. 6 road traffic collisions in the period we're reporting for. No fatal RTC casualties in that period we're reporting for, and 20 non-fatal RTC casualties in that period. 5 deliberate fires, 3 of which were primary and 2 of which were secondary, and 2 of non-domestic fires and 25 of unwanted fire alarm signals. To give a bit more narrative to those KPIs, of the 6 accidental dwelling fires, they were slightly above the 3-year average. The majority were classed as low severity, requiring little or no intervention from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and minimal fire damage. There were no fatalities, as I already said, and no casualties. And all accidental dwelling fires are offered home fire safety visits and agency referrals where required, as detailed by our processes and protocols. Of the 5 deliberate fires, 3 were deliberate primary fires, which is above the average, and 2 deliberate secondary fires, which are below the average. Referrals are made to other agencies for those that work with our communities in relation to these fires. We attended 6 road traffic collisions, which is below the average. There were no related fatalities, as I said. However, of those 6, between those 6 RTCs, we had 20 related injuries. 15 of those resulted from 2 incidents. Of the 20, 1 went to hospital with what appears to be serious injuries, and a further 16 went to hospital with what appear to be slight injuries. Obviously, our prevention teams are working with partner agencies through the Highland Road Safety Group, Older Driver Virtuality Scheme, and Road Safety Scheme for new drivers. We attended 25 UFAS or unwanted fire alarm signals, which is showing a decrease from the 1st of July 2023. As you will be aware, we have stopped attending AFA call-outs to commercial businesses and workplace premises, such as factories, offices, shops and leisure facilities, unless a fire has been confirmed. Our control operators in Dundee now ask anyone who reports a fire alarm to check whether there is an actual fire or signs of fire before sending the nearest fire appliance. This does not apply to sleeping premises such as hospitals, care homes, hotels, or obviously domestic dwellings, who will receive the full PDA or predetermined attendance. This change follows the SFRS public consultation in 2021. Our CSAs, our community safety advocates and station personnel undertook 68 home fire visits. The majority target the most at risk in our communities. As you move further down, you will see the red line on those graphs, obviously the 3-year average, and you can see, as I've detailed in the narrative above, where some of those are slightly above. And as you move down, which is really good for us for fatal and non-fatal casualties, it's 0, which is really good and should be welcomed. And then home fire safety visits, we're down slightly on the 3-year average moving forward. And then non-fire emergencies, we are slightly above. We should be the 3-year average. Road traffic collisions, we are down in the period that this report is for. As you can see there, there's quite a significant increase there in casualties for that period. Moving forward, deliberate fires, then we are still below the average for the 3 years, which is good. However, on the primary fires, we are above by 3. And deliberate fires, we are still below, which is good. Non-domestic fires, quarters, we are well below the 3 average, which shows some good preventative work with our community safety people and community workers and referrals. And unwanted fire alarm signals, again, 25, we need to increase on that, but that's a work in progress, and we're moving on that as a service. And last but not least is our station establishment availability, which you can all pretty much see for yourself as it is. I think, he says, that is the report. I now would like to welcome any questions from the panel on any of that report, please.
Thank you very much, Shade, for that. Good to see a lot of the below average stats in there. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, hi Shay.
Hiya.
What's the difference between a primary and a secondary fire, please?
I knew someone would ask that. Okay, so so primary fire is like a primary, so like a dwelling fire, like a house or a vehicle, whereas a secondary fire is like someone's like an outbuilding, a shed fire.
Oh, I see.
Right. So that's the difference of primary and secondary.
Primary is the more important. It's not a time sequence
well,
thing.
They're both important, but the primary is like the main ones. That's dwellings. That's where potential risk of casualties, whereas the outbuildings like old sheds or big outbuildings that have caught fire.
And just on the road casualties, although it looks like there's a 10%, 10 times last year's number, 2's gone to 20.
Yeah.
That you said that 15 or 16 of those were almost one incident, so that was an exception.
So I can, because I was in charge of both those incidents. They were 15 of those casualties were 2 specific incidents that happened on the 23rd of December, and unfortunately on Christmas Eve last year, both in 2 separate places. And I can't go into details too much, obviously with GDPR, but one was just towards Corran Ferry by, I think it's called 3 Mile Water. And the other one was over at Invergloy on the way to Lochlenny there.
That's when the trees were falling over, wasn't it?
I think it was just before. I think it was just before, just after. Yeah. But yeah, so that was a significant number of casualties. Yeah. But that was to do with the amount of cars and vehicles involved, which was quite. It was an involved incident, and a good partnership working with ourselves, the police, the ambulance. It was really good.
It was an exception and not something we should be alarmed about, I think.
No. It's just, again, it's a variable that we can't account for. But the good thing is that no one died, and all the trauma that was carried out from that, all the crews attending, fire service and ambulance worked really well together to get them all to definitive medical care. So it was good.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Andrew and Shay. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions. The first one refers to good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Councillor.
First question refers to the paragraph where you talk about community safety, safety visits. The majority targeted the most at risk in our communities. Could you explain a bit more how you decide which ones are most at risk? And also, particularly with the cost of living crisis, are we finding that people are using unsafe devices, unchecked devices to heat their homes? Is it something you have detected, and what can we do to help?
Okay, so during the third and fourth quarters, crews from various stations in the Lochaber districts and community safety advocates, CSA personnel, completed, obviously, as I said, the 68 home fire safety visits, which were obviously below the 3 average. But this deviation can be attributed to various factors, including heightened focus on prioritising the most at-risk community members. And nonetheless, the Scottish Fire Rescue Service remains proactive in collaborating with other partner agencies to gather and assess referrals for vulnerable community members committed to promptly addressing their needs. So to answer your first sort of question there, Councillor, is we prioritise what's dedicated by the various agencies that refer them to us for the home fire safety visits, and these are the most at-risk adults or other people in the community that the agencies that refer them to us for the home fire safety visits, they make that risk assessment, risk matrix as to the level of risk and the priority of those home fire safety visits, if that makes sense. And your second question, your second point, sorry, I missed that one, Councillor, the second one. Around devices. Yeah, sorry. So basically we have no definitive evidence, or we've not come across anything where people are using what you would class as, what you'd say, the defective or substandard equipment for any sorts of cost cutting. Although the instance we've gone to, and none of our crews have reported any of that in any of their visits, but it's something I'll take away to talk about with our crews to make sure that we have some idea and some eyes on the ground to look out for that, and if so, we'll report on that.
Yeah. I was thinking of fireplaces as well, what they put in them, that sort of thing. But my other question is completely different. There are lots of discussions about congestion at the moment on some parts of our roads. Have you found that it is actually impeding your work and could put lives at risk because of your difficulty to intervene rapidly?
I don't think it would put lives at risk, because we obviously we don't rely on just surely on Fort William. We have other fire engines in the local area. So if it's the nature of on call is, we will endeavour to get a fire engine. Whatever incident we get called to, there will be a fire appliance made available by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. Yes, but since I've been up here, since I've transferred about 18 months ago, I think there's always been an issue with traffic, and it's not just for the fire service. I think for the Fort William, and that's not for me to sort of discuss on. But the nature of on call is that obviously they don't have any exemptions for traffic, so they will have to sit in that traffic sometimes, and that can cause delay. But I wouldn't advocate that delay causes puts lives at risk, because other appliances would be made available to go to an incident. So it wouldn't be just like Fort William, for example, if that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
John. Yeah.
Okay. Morning, Shay.
Good morning.
Sorry, two potentially awkward questions. I've got your figures here on the first sheet with your sort of staffing in the fire stations. We had this last year because I know Fort Augustus is also involved, but because it's in a different area, we don't get those figures. Right. But in terms of retained services, how is the staffing matching up to your sort of expected or needed numbers in the retained fire stations? Because I know you're having difficulty recruiting at some point.
I think the service is proactively looking to recruit, and our recruiting numbers up. I think last year, I increased, by 27% in Lochaber. I increased recruitment. So we're one of the districts that are doing quite well for recruitment. However, we're now entering a period of retirees who've done 20, 30 years service within the fire service and retiring. But of course, with on call, as you are all aware, the pool with which you can recruit from is smaller, and in some rural areas are smaller. So we are currently looking and constantly looking at innovative ways in which we can retain staff and recruit staff for those areas.
Lovely, thank you. That 20% sounds good. And the second question, the short-term lets and rented accommodations and so on, they have to pass a fire safety check, which I know there's certain requirements in terms of fire alarms and so on. How does that affect your workload? I'm aware that short-term lets are increasing phenomenally. The licensing committee were having to put 2 extra days in to cope with all the work. So is that affecting you or not?
Not me personally, and not operational staff, because this is taken up with our community safety, our prevention, preparedness, and department in M&S headquarters. So they have a team put by, and to deal with the increase in short-term applications, they are recruiting staff from around the service to help with the increase in applications. So they are fully aware of it, and are putting plans in place to deal with that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shay. Just a quick question. I think everyone else has asked. In terms of the deliberate fires, are they, in terms of location, are they whereabouts? Are they rural based or more urban based, or is it a sort of a spread? Is there any pattern with that?
No pattern as such, no trends identified in any operational intentions we have on those. 2 of them were outside fires, and they're dotted all over the Lochaber district. So there's no distinct trend or pattern that we identified to highlight why they've occurred.
Okay, thanks very much. I think no more questions. Thank you very much for that, Shay, and yeah, it's good to hear what's going on. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Shay.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yes, thanks, Shay.
Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Moving on to item 5, the Fort William 2040 annual update. We've got Alison Martin, the Fort William 2040 project manager, has joined us here in the room. So thank you very much, Alison, for joining us. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, just to go over the report submitted to the committee. I picked up the post in November last year, so this is an annual update that's followed 2 years after Martin's last one, but that's just to do with the change in personnel, and that sets out the progress that's been made on the range of Fort William 2040 projects and some additional work that's been done in that time. Appended to the report is the detailed update on all the projects that have been included in 2040. There have been 36 to date. Some have been parked due to viability, but in that time 13 have been completed, and we have 20 that are currently active. That first table shows various stages. I think what's useful to note is probably 3/4 of those approximately are either due for completion imminently or in various stages of progression. There's a small number that have been paused, and I have ongoing monitoring of those. Perhaps unsurprisingly, that's largely related to sort of the funding climate at the moment. What I'd probably do is return to questions about any specific projects at the end and just cover a few other developments that have been implemented sort of like since I came on in post, and also developing work that Martin, my predecessor, had done. A key part of my role this year has been an extensive programme of community engagement on the proposed town centre master plan for Fort William. So that's involved quite a comprehensive range of different engagement processes to see if we can access as many views from the community as possible. Maybe of interest to the committee here, I've had a reasonable success with engaging with young people. I had a session at Lochaber High School where approximately nearly 200 students got involved with the plans for the town and gave their feedback. the next stage of, I'm currently compiling all that community feedback and hoping to make that publicly available in the next couple of weeks. Following on from that will also be the really crucial stage of how commissioning partners who got involved in commissioning the master plan work will respond to that feedback, and that will also be made publicly available so people can see how their comments have been taken on board. In addition to that quite intensive piece of work on the town centre master plan, there's obviously been ongoing work coordinating with the other 19 projects, just helping where I can with meetings or investigating information for people. Specifically, I have a community stakeholder group and a transport stakeholder group, which I help to coordinate and facilitate, and that's to engage with all elements of Fort William 2040. The transport subgroup has met 3 times now, and we had the first community stakeholder group meeting in June to be followed up, hopefully, in September. Out of that, sometimes some other issues occur. So there is a short life working group that I've currently been involved in setting up to look at the canal swing bridge operation at Banavie. And those meetings so far have been reasonably successful, bringing partners together at the table to look at ways that the canal operation can maybe be improved to help the local community. As a result of this, and this is one of the main notes in the report, is that my post is going to be continued for another 24 months. I hope the committee is happy to support that process. So the priorities, I think, for the coming year for 2040, it will be continuing the work on the town centre master plan and responding to recommendations that come out of the engagement process, and looking to instigate work to further elements in the proposals. A key piece of collaborative work on the integrated transport plan for Fort William. This was a key project that came out of 2040, looking at recommendations from STPR2 with Transport Scotland and work that could be done to fully understand and suggest proposals or improvements to address congestion and the problems on the road network. Ongoing support and development of all projects on 2040, including potentially bringing any new projects onto the list. And one that has transpired in the last few months is the proposed extension to the West Highland Museum in the town centre, and the work that team there is doing with a Heritage Lottery Fund bid. And I think that's probably the best suitable summary for that at the moment, but I would obviously invite any questions about the detail.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alison, and fantastic to see your post extended for 24 months. I think we'd all be happy to support that. That's fantastic. Any questions?
Just one question is just to say that I'm glad to hear that the transport aspect and congestion is there.
Yes.
Perhaps a question, how open is it to new projects? Because as we discussed earlier, we were in a meeting last night talking about it, and there's all sorts of ideas that come into it. How flexible it is to take in new projects?
Yeah, I mean, reasonably to an extent, but there would be a process. What is useful is to have a discussion with myself, and then it's something I can take to the 2040 board, which meets quarterly, so 4 times a year. The main concern is at what point the community get to input in some respect to a project being on or not, and the hope is that next year we will return to the sort of annual bigger community engagement event. And there was one in Cool Community Centre in 2022, and that would be a process to get some feedback on that. But the initial thing is a discussion to see maybe how well it fits with the general principles of 2040 around making the town sort of a better place to live, work and visit. So there aren't set criteria necessarily for what gets included. I don't know if that it's more an initial discussion and then a presentation to the board.
Very glad to hear that the bridge at the canal is under discussions. Will we be able to have updates on this? I've been contacted by constituents.
Yes.
About the situation.
Yes, absolutely. There's a further meeting because this takes time to establish what can be done operationally, but at the last meeting I had with the partners there, they were very keen that there was a combined approach to how that was communicated, and there definitely will be an update once something firm can be said about the exact details of the new operations.
One of the biggest complaints was to open the bridge at the worst time of the day, for example, when children were coming out of school and there was a lot of traffic, that sort of thing. And I take it all that is being discussed, yeah.
Absolutely, that is one of the key things that's being looked at. Yeah, it's looking at how the operation of the bridge can better coordinate with the other uses on the road. Yeah. So,
thank you very much.
But yes, there will be an update on that provided.
Yeah, John?
Aye.
Thanks, Kate. In terms of communication, a lot of people know sort of where you're at and what's going on. I understand it's difficult. I think sometimes, I mean, at the meeting last night, the community weren't all aware of Fort William 2040 and the plans and so on. I went to one of the presentations, I think it was in the Nevis Centre. Do you have a permanent display anywhere or some presentation in terms of what the current plans are and what the direction is?
At the moment, that's primarily available online. And I appreciate the next comment might be that's not necessarily accessible to everyone. That's the most useful location to keep things updated for everyone. If there is a specific proposal, for example, the town centre master plan, I put that was in the library for 4 weeks to try and make it as accessible as possible. And there is the hope to start next year again with a community day, probably towards the end of the year, where all 2040 projects can be updated again. There was the hope that would happen annually, but COVID, etc. Various things have got in the way, but yes, a return to that, because I'm aware that, not everybody knows. Yeah.
It's a bit of a bug of mine as well. I'm autistic.
Okay.
So there's something about actually seeing it and the tactileness of it. I absorb it better. Yeah. Whereas online, it's just so in terms of accessibility, there will be people out there who would be more aware if there was a displacement that they could actually go and look at. Okay. I know it's only a small issue, but
no, it's a very valid point. I think, and myself and Dot were going to have a conversation about this sort of how do we maintain community engagement without it being overloading and just constantly doing it. But yeah, so that's a really interesting point, and I think we'll add that into the discussions. Thank you. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions. One, so in terms of great to see the involvement of students and 200 from Lochaber High. So in terms of the community engagement, fantastic. The consultants that are preparing the master plan, what's the timeline for the final document to be completed?
Hopefully in the next. Well, it's a work in progress. So there are various stages. So my hope is in the next 1 to 2 weeks there will be that summary document which says these are all your comments. This is the feedback, and there was 500 to 600, an estimate 500 to 600 members of the community at some point or other in the last 6 months have engaged with the master plan and given us feedback. So that will be available online, and paper copies will be put in the library, and that, so a sort of more physical presentation of that. There's then going to be the next stage, which is this was the feedback. This is how the master plan has or hasn't changed in response to that feedback, because some of the there may be instances where the feedback, it's been very easy to respond, and in other cases, for example, comments about the proposals for the road are very much tied up in this work on the integrated transport plan with Transport Scotland. So it's not a direct answer on that, but it's combined in a future piece of work. So a document also needs produced from that, which says this is what will happen, this is the response to the feedback. So that isn't a complete change of the master plan. They will be supplementary pieces of work that will be designed to be the same style as the master plan document, but to be read as addendums, for example. And I would hope that both of those will be available in the next couple of months. That's the plan. And then there's the stage of how do commissioning partners and wider partners progress, which proposals had support, and how should these be progressed, and that will be probably a reasonable focus for my work in the next 12 months. Yeah.
Thanks. And just going back to, I was looking at it's probably table 1, a specific project in there. Any updates on progress for a new helicopter landing site?
It's handy that Dot's here. I might pass that over.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There are discussions ongoing in terms of the current landing site, which has clearly got a planning application on it from Breedens just now, but looking for an alternate site. There is an alternate site that has been identified, and there's early discussions now between various local parties in terms of identifying the costs of developing that and then getting the funding in place. But there's positive discussions as well with the HELP appeal, which funds air ambulance landing sites as well. So there's good discussions ongoing just now, but it will be I would hope over the next 9 to 12 months that will work its way through.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. John?
Sorry, just another question.
No, not at all, yeah.
I feel I got to mention it. The section paused on ongoing monitoring. There's quite a list in that, and obviously some of them, like the new hospital, are really passionate and awkward issues in the community. Just along with that, what contact do you have with politicians? Because again, at the meeting last night, we were talking about how do we put pressure on people, how do we move this, how do we get it in front of the faces of the people who make the decisions. So do you have another avenue that we're not accessing where you can actually contact politicians to sort of present this situation?
Yeah, I mean, very good question. Not really myself. Some members of the Fort William 2040 board that oversees my work, I believe they are in a better position to have those kind of discussions. And as far as I'm aware, in all the discussions that have been had, the hospital is seen as incredibly important, and I believe all partner representatives, whenever the opportunity arises, the hospital and the traffic and transport infrastructure are probably the 2 key points that are raised. Yeah.
So if you can encourage your board or
yeah.
However, but yeah, I feel like, I think everybody else will agree, we need some sort of joined up thinking to pull everybody in so that we can put as much pressure or awareness onto government as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, I agree, but yes, we'll take that up. Yeah.
And just to note, I go along, I am a member of the transport subgroup, and certainly, you know, the key partners are on that subgroup. So, you know, from government, so it is, you know, they are involved in the discussions and getting the local feedback as to what the issues are, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I try to act as a conduit, partly it's for that communication both ways. So the role of the community stakeholder group and the transport subgroup are really important for that. Yeah. Yeah, cheers.
Okay. So yeah, we're happy to agree the agenda items and to fantastic support the extension of your post and support the priority areas going forward. So we look forward to further updates and seeing someone got their hand up.
Oh, we've lost them.
No, it's okay, it's fine. It just needs nobody's got their camera on.
Yeah. And obviously, if anyone had any questions for beyond this meeting, please just email me.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. So moving on to item 6, which is the winter service plan, and we've got Kristen McLeod, who's joined us, area roads manager. Thank you very much, Kristen, and good morning.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, councillors. So we're at that time of year again where we're thinking about winter. So the report that's been presented today is the winter service plan for 24-25. This plan also follows our guidelines for the winter maintenance policy 2018, and there is no changes on the report from last year. So I'm open if you just want to go straight into any queries or questions, or if you prefer that I went through the report and operationally what we do. I'm happy for you just to take the lead and let me know.
Yeah, I think we've all seen the report. Thank you very much for it, and we've got the maps in front of us. So I think I'll hand over if anyone's got any questions.
No, just to say it would be important to share it with communities, particularly when the snow comes, and that's something we get lots of people asking questions, complaining sometimes. So, do you have a plan to share this with community councils?
The community councils through corporate comms. I suppose we've got the winter resilience schemes that hopefully they all know that they can apply for, so that that incorporates the salt, grip bins, shovels, high-vis vests, and also us being able to put out extra salt heaps. So there's a requirement for that. There's been a kind of shift change in the weather the last couple of years that we've noted that is coming in through the west. Now obviously every year is different, so it could be completely different this year, but we've had to put extra salt so the community can help themselves in Kilhoan. Bracara, last winter we've decided to put out extra grit bins. There is always there can be a problem if you do your salt heaps with the deer and the sheep in some of the rural locations. So it's a fine line from putting out too many grit bins where there's a lot of resource involved with grit bins. The new policy was agreed at committee on Thursday in Inverness, but obviously we know Lochaber we've got a longer kilometres of other routes than we do primary and secondary. So we are aware of the target areas, if you like. But back to the community councils, yeah, I mean, it would be better if they approached us before, we're in the thick of winter, and unfortunately it doesn't usually work like that. Usually we'll go into a deep freeze and then everybody's shouting for salt and everybody's wanting the roads gritted, and the way it works. And if we've got any storms in the mix at the same time, then resources are stretched. So I think the message would be to councillors, to maybe push that to approach us if they feel there's areas that require extra help, extra salt.
Thank you.
I get just one quick question in relation to have you got the staff resources for this winter?
Yeah, we're not too bad at the moment. There's always a pressure on resources. If you have one roads operative that might go on sick, for instance, then that can put service pressures on for drivers' hours and rest and the rota. But at the moment, we're still got one to recruit from the peninsula side, and we're up to full staffing levels on the Lochaber side. So we're in quite a good position.
Excellent, that's good to hear. Thanks, Kristen. Any other questions, John?
Yeah, morning, Kristen.
Morning.
Just a quick one. You mentioned changing the weather and so on. I noticed it's the A82, but I noticed at the moment there's flooding in a couple of sections of that where one carriageway is completely submerged underwater. What sort of contingency plans have we got as a council for the roads that we manage in terms of flooding and the changes because of climate?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really important that actually drainage is a massive, even the weather that we've had the last 3 weeks has been a case of us targeting culverts, block ditches, offlets, so that the water is released from the carriageway into the open ditches. So it's something that we're very, very cautious of. And last winter, out with actually our winter treatment, we we were renewing a lot of culverts, old style culverts that were now failing. So drainage is a high priority for us.
How are we doing on that issue? Do we have the sort of the machinery and the manpower and so on to manage that?
Yeah, we do. And also, you know, we now it's well set up through corporate planning. We get emergency planning from the Met Office, so you know we can start putting extra resources on standby with machinery. So yeah, we're between our usual winter maintenance and the storms that we've seen increasing. We're trying to react as best as we can.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Kristen. I don't think we've got any questions online. So I think that's it for the questions. So I think we're happy to approve the winter service plan. Thank you very much for joining us, Kristen. And let's hope for a lovely winter, better than this summer.
Using salad trees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So item 7 is the allocation process for the area share of invitation to pay income for the Mallow West car park. And hand over to you, Willie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. As you know, the Council approved a £1.5 million visitor management strategy at its meeting on the 4th of March 2021. This was in response to the increased number of tourists visiting the Highlands. £250,000 was allocated for improvements to parking management across Highland, including invitation to pay. During the 22-23 financial year, invitation to pay was introduced at Mallow West Bay Car Park. As per the Council policy, 50% of net income after costs are passed to the relevant area committee as earmarked funds from the previous financial year. The amount allocated for Lochaber area committee from the 22-23 and 23-24 financial years is £17,062. That was £7,566 in 22-23 and £9,496 in 23-24. Members are asked to approve a process that will allocate the 22-23 and 23-24 area share. The proposal would involve inviting a joint application from the Community Council and a relevant community development group for the Mallow area. Applicants will be encouraged to identify a project or projects which are a community priority, and the Community Council can be consulted with to decide if this should be spent just in the Mallow Community Council area or the wider geography, and to identify a community group or groups to partner with. If this process is agreed, then an application would be submitted via a similar process as the ward discretionary budget, and authorisation of spend for up to £10,000 would be delegated to the senior community development manager, and £10,000 or over would be subject to committee approval as per the scheme of delegation. At the end of the 24-25 financial year, a review of the process will be undertaken to consider any changes that may be required for future implementation. And I'm happy to take any questions at this stage now.
Yeah, thanks, Willie. Any questions?
Now, I don't have any questions, but I was speaking to Sandra, the chair of Mallow Community Council, and they have got to join together with the harbour. You were talking about a community development group, and they're with the harbour, with the road to the Isles. They've been speaking to Arizeg and Mora community councils and the Arizeg and Mora community trusts. So there is sort of a group all there, sort of ready to take something on board and move forward with it.
That would be great. And what we'll do if the members approve this is we will write out to the Community Council with the kind of initial kind of guidance and start communication about how they want to take this forward.
£10, John?
Yep.
Sorry, Willie. Carry on.
Oh, that's all. That's okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the area that groups, the area that this funding is allocated to, are we looking at just the concentrated area of Malig, or could it be a wider area, say, if there's not a Lochaber, an area place plan developed out there?
Which there is with those three.
Yeah, okay.
So they're sort of, they're trying to work it together. So Malig, Mora and Arazeg are wanting to pool their resources to get one place plan.
So would that then sort of determine the area that could bid into this fund?
Well, as I say, I think what the report is saying is we would consult with the community council, and if they were happy to widen that geography to be more than just the community council area, then that's something we would take on board. See, the way it's worked in the West of Ross, which is the only other area I've been working in that has invitation to pay, they have got a lot more car parks using invitation to pay spread over the geography, so they have focused just on their community council area. But given that this is the only one in that area, they may be happy to kind of stretch that geography so it's wider than just Malig, because obviously the impact of Malig might not be just from what happens within their community, but the adjoining communities.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Willie. So I think.
We need to say yes to something.
Yep. No questions online. So I think a member's happy to approve the agenda. What's the recommendations? So we're approving the process, that it will be reviewed, and how authorising the spend. Yep. Thank you. Members have approved. Thanks, Willie, for that.
Thank you.
So item 8 is the Fort William Business Improvement District, and I will hand over to Dot. Thank you, Dot.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, members. So the report you have before you today sets out the background to the proposed creation of a business improvement district for Fort William. In an update just now to the report in terms of the recommendation 2.1 that you have before me, I can confirm that the Economy and Infrastructure Committee agreed last week not to use its power of veto. In terms of the implications set out in section 3, if a bid ballot was successful, there would be resource implications for the council, as the council would be required to pay the levy on all its properties which have a rateable value unless occupied by a tenant. So, for example, we own the industrial estates, but if there is a tenant in one of the units, the tenant would be liable to pay, but if that unit was empty, then the council would be liable to pay. So section 5.2, that clearly sets out the council's own role in terms of the creation of a bid, and there's been considerable involvement by a number of the council's teams, including elections, revenues and community support and engagement in helping the steering group through the various processes. Section 6 of the report, starting then to get more into the bones of the actual bid itself. So section 6 does provide the outline, mission statement and also the objectives of the proposed business improvement district, and then that's expanded considerably within the appendices to the report, including the map of the area which would be covered. It's intended to hold the ballot date would be the 21st of November, and if successful, it would be intended to establish a bid company on the 5th of December, and then the bid would run for 5 years, at which time a further ballot would be held to see if there's still support for the bid for a subsequent 5-year period. And then finally, section 7 sets out the decision-making process whereby the area committee today can choose to recommend to full council that it supports the bid. The full council meets on the 19th of September, and that would appear as a starred item on that agenda. The recommendations are set out in the report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Dot. Does anyone have any questions? Or anything else they'd like to say?
Could you just come back on the bit, the right to vote as a property owner of the council? We have the right to vote in the bid ballot. Yeah. Do you have an idea how many buildings we're talking about?
It's a number of properties, and just off the top of my head, I don't have the exact number, but you would be talking clearly occupied buildings such as, this Depot Cars Corner. I think schools are included, but also like car parks, anything which has a rateable value on it. So in terms of the banding, you'd see there's the banding for different levy amounts, so anything under £3,000 seeking a voluntary income, voluntary payment, and then up to the highest band, we're looking at the highest band, which is your large companies such as Allocation, would pay, I think it's £3,000 per year.
So, ma'am, we as a council, we have we would have the opportunity to vote on this
Yes.
at the time, but it doesn't mean we can opt out if the vote doesn't go the way.
No. if the ballot is successful, and for a successful ballot it requires 25% turnout by number of eligible businesses and 25% minimum turnout by rateable value. And then as long as the majority agree with that turnout, then everybody within the bid area is then tied into paying the levy. There isn't an opt-out clause if you don't want to pay for any business.
There's no opt-out clause.
No. If the majority support the ballot, then everybody within that area is due to pay it.
My concern being that we're not a business and basically we'll be paying into this with public money. I'm just making this point.
Hang on, John.
Yeah.
So, thanks. Thomas next, and then John.
Just first thing I'd like to say, I'm totally supportive of bid areas. I always looked enviously at Oban and Inverness, who both had bid areas funding. They also had common good funds, and these are fantastic avenues to get ventures off the ground to attract more tourism to the area. But I did want the opportunity to register my disappointment that we have effectively cut Fort William in half here, in that one side of the River Lochie has to pay this and the other side doesn't. And it's something I've always thought was wrong with this particular area that we've picked, that it was too small and half the town was going to have to pay it and the other half wasn't. And even today, agenda item 5, Fort William 2040, we spent an inordinate amount of time talking about the Caledonian Canal. So it's fairly obvious that Fort William goes from Annet, probably to Terlundy, maybe even Nevis Range. It includes Glen Nevis, and it goes to Cretanna. That should have been the area. And it is just disappointing that it's only half of it. And I don't know whether it's because I've been here a while. I just find it odd that in the old days, this would have been one councillor's ward would have got hammered for this, and a couple of other councillors, a little bit of their ward would have to contribute, and 4 other councillors or 5 other councillors would get away. Their area wouldn't get. And there's something about this where today we're being asked to agree this, and 3 councillors have no cost to their electorate, and the other 4, I know one of them, Angus, is no longer with us, he's moving on to other things, but it just doesn't sit right. I feel that councillors get the opportunity to impose a burden on other people, and if it's a big area, fine, but when it's splitting an area in half, I just don't agree with this. But I totally support the principle of a bid area. It's something that Fort William needs, but it should have been the total town, what is viewed as the town, and I feel that that is reinforced by the discussion we had on item 5, Fort William 2040, where we talked about the Caledonian Canal. It's wrong that it's only half the town. I feel that has to be registered. And I had a business owner 2 weeks ago who, when he realised that he was going to have to pay it, one of his competitors wasn't a very happy person. So I want to register that it should have been the whole town.
Yep, thank you very much, Thomas. Some very good points in there.
Yeah.
John.
Thank you. As one of the councillors who doesn't have to pay anything. I actually agree with Thomas. I sort of totally I said that before about Fort William 2040, that I feel cool and other areas should be part of it. But in terms of the right to vote item that Sarah raised, if I'm getting it right, and it does seem strange that as the tenant, as the owner, the council has a vote, but it's the tenants that would be paying the money, and effectively they don't have a vote.
No,
So
it's not in terms of the vote. And I can get clarity on this, but my understanding is that the council would get a vote on each of its properties, and that presumably at that point would be any empty property.
right.
So what I'm unsure of, and I will get clarity, is if then somebody then moves into that property in terms of that voting. But any tenants who are already in the property, they would get that vote.
Right, okay.
If they're already occupying property, they would get that vote.
Right, so the council won't be voting for them in effect?
No.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, John. Thank you. So I guess, I mean, we're being asked to approve the bid going forward so that businesses within the bid area can vote for it. And I think as councillors, we should be, you know, supporting that, as Thomas says, the bid is good. You know, the income it will generate to help deal with issues within and improve opportunities within the bid area is fantastic. But ultimately it comes down to businesses in the bid area voting, because they are going to be the ones that are contributing to the you know, paying the levy for the bid. So I support the recommendation, but noting in the appendices for this report, you know, the data is there about the consultation process that has gone on so far, and it would suggest that more businesses need to engage with this process and find out what the bid involves, what its objectives are, what it means for their business, and what they're going to have to contribute to it. So I would just really strongly urge that on the 21st of November, when the voting day for this, that every business in the bid area needs to get out and vote for this, because if you don't vote, and the bid is successful, even if you don't approve of it, once that vote has happened, the bid, you know, you cannot opt out. It will be compulsory. So yes, please, everyone, engage, learn what the bid means, and vote on the day. And I think that I certainly would support the recommendation that the bid process goes forward. If anyone else has anything to say.
I'll say the same thing, despite the reservations I've expressed, and also I totally agree with Thomas that we've split the town into two. It's not right. However, the principle of the bid is something we want to see. It's been successful in other parts of Scotland. To improve business relationships with each other, the local authority and the community. So to ensure that it happens, we need a meaningful result for the votes. So I would strongly encourage as much participation as possible from businesses.
Thomas.
Just to reinforce, I completely support a bid area. Disappointed in what we've picked out as an area, but I suppose you have to plant acorns sometimes to grow an oak tree. But I do totally support the principle of a bid. And I've made my point about the area we've selected, but I support a bid for this area wholeheartedly. And in fact, I would have seconded your proposal, because I do support the principle of a bid. I'm just disappointed about the area that we've selected.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. And I think, yes, so I think we do, as you say, we all support this, and we just encourage everyone within the area to vote on the 21st of November. So we're happy to agree the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes, and good luck. to the process going forward. Thanks, Dot. So item 9 is just to approve a council representative on the Isle of Egg Heritage Trust for the next 2.5 years. If anyone would like to just say, I have been doing a bit of work with the Heritage Trust over the last couple of months. Andrew, have you got your hand up? You're muted.
Again, right. Kate, I'd like to propose that that you take that position.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, and second round.
Thank you, Liz. So, yeah, thank you. That would be, I'm happy to accept that. So item 10 is the ward discretionary budget. We're just noting the awards that have been allocated so far in 24-25. And then item 11, minutes of the Lochaber Area Committee on the 14th of May. We're all happy to approve those. Thank you. And that concludes the August Area Committee meeting. Thank you everyone for attending. And
Thank you for chairing.
Thank you.
Right on, Kate.